once again, welcome, and we'll now start. So we'll start with some introductions from some of the club leaders and any special guests that we have. So hi, I'm Adi. I'm a junior at Eden Prairie High School, and I'm experienced in app development, specifically with the Flutter development environment, which I'll talk a bit more about later. And I've also made some Python programs using libraries that you can import using Anaconda. I've also taken AP CSP and AP Java at the high school, and personally, I felt that was a really useful experience to get a solid foundation in coding, and it really strengthened my interest in computer science. Leave it to Samina.
Yeah, so hello, my name is Samin, and I'm also a junior at Eden Prairie High School. And like Audi, I've also taken AP Computer Science Principles and AP Java. And personally, I felt like both classes were pretty useful in getting me to understand coding better, as well as the applications of computer science, which is pretty helpful for me to understand. And also, I'm in robotics in the programming team, so I'm getting to know more about robotics. Also, I'm interested in learning machine learning, and I've made maybe a couple of basic projects where I took a data set and I predicted if a person would get a heart attack based on conditions in the data set. And I also occasionally write Python games using the software called Pygame, and I will cover that later in this slide.
Hi, I'm Sarthak. I'm a junior, just like Samin and Adi. Taking APCSP, AP Java, and now I'm taking iOS. So what's interesting is I didn't really know any coding at all really before like COVID, which is I guess kind of interesting because I just kind of learned everything in March. So I know a little bit of some Java, some Python, and I've worked with Swift as well since I'm taking iOS development. I've also been learning a little bit of machine learning with Samin as well, so it's been pretty fun.
All right. And just to give you a bit about how the club works, so since everything is virtual, all our meetings will be run virtually on Zoom. And for our club representative as a teacher, we have Mr. Moss. So he's the physics teacher, just to let you guys know. So next we'll go on to John, and he's actually one of the FA founders and advisors for the entire Futures Academy organization. So leave it to you.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I can give a brief background about my history. I was in the military for 8 years as a computer networking engineer. I go out in the middle of nowhere, shoot up to a satellite, grab an uplink, deploy networks, program routers and switches. Went into networking at a huge company called United Health Group. Got really bored of it really fast. Ended up becoming an entrepreneur in residence in this big company. So it's a 180 from programming routers and switches to building healthcare solutions and startups inside this large company. In August 2016, we ran into where emerging technologies was really disrupting the healthcare space. So everything from AI technologies, which has natural language processing, machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, to quantum computing, to graph database technologies, robotics and the such. And so how can you apply these emerging technologies in the healthcare space? That's really what we focused on. So, if you think back to now, it's inconceivable that people wouldn't understand the internet. But back in the day when the internet came out, people were like, what's a web page? Do we need a web page? The web page is is it a fad? Of course, now we know it's not. And so there's a lot of these emerging technologies that are coming out and changing the world. And so our group solely focused on applying these emerging technologies. And that's sort of when Futurist Academy spun up as well, because there was a huge gap between what was being taught in the education system and then the students. And so what we wanted to do was connect these students with mentors and have that network in these companies so they could get access to these technologies and get their hands on and become the next Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. Just provide that environment for them to grow and provide them with opportunities. And so, that's how Futures Academy was spun up. And I also work for a Silicon Valley startup right now called TigerGraph, which since I came from the networking world, I leveraged that and went into the graph database world. And so I could go on a lot on that topic, but yeah, I'd love to talk to you guys individually or as a group, or if you guys need any advice or mentoring, or let me know. I'm here for you. So
Nice. Raghava?
Hello, Raghava Uguri, and I was a past FA EPFA lead, and now I'm a freshman at Purdue, and I'm extremely interested in robotics. That's always what I'm doing, always what I'm working on, 24/7. So I'm working on a couple robotics projects, and really I started this honestly like just the beginning of this year, really just going really deep into robotics concepts, and now at Purdue in an organization kind of working on a couple projects to basically like create tutorials and like platforms for like learning like um, kind of cornerstone like robotics projects like robot arms, robots that can like map your house like Roomba, and stuff like that.
Nice. Rohan?
Hey, I'm Rohan. I'm also a past FA lead. I'm currently at University of Minnesota pursuing computer science, and yeah, so I'm mostly interested in software projects like making websites using React or using Python to make to integrate different hardware and software applications.
Cool. Shreya?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Shreya. So I joined Futurist Academy as an intern during the summer, and I got introduced to graph databases, and I was super interested in that. Currently, I'm an intern at TigerGraph, actually working under John, and I've been mostly exploring graph databases.
Cool. So it's good to hear your guys' introductions and move on. So just a bit about Futurist Academy as a club. We have 3 core principles which we base our club off on. So first, we want to connect students with knowledgeable professionals. Our goal is to have people working in teams as groups and having this project-based learning where you'll be able to learn and apply some new STEM skills, and that could be whatever you're interested in. But also in the future, we would want to outsource to some knowledgeable professionals. Already we have John, Raghava, Rohan, and Shreya. They have like pretty vast knowledge in these fields, so they can especially work with us and then give us some tips and tricks along the way. Another thing is providing a foundation for students to develop new technology skills. Right now we're going to show you some onboarding projects in the later slides. And that the goal of those is, as I'd said, the projects would try to help and foster those STEM skills. So that would just be like a foundation for you guys to just start learning off some of those introductory languages such as like Python, Dart, which works with Flutter, and that gets you to app development. Then lastly, it's to create a playground for students to build products to reshape the future. So this is one of those outlook points that we have, which would be like ours as a community, as a Futures Academy community, where everyone's like all pretty free with each other, and we can all just like demonstrate what we've learned and what we've accomplished. And then we can take suggestions from others to improve what we want to do. So John, if you want to just give a short keynote on Futures Academy as an organization, that would work.
yeah. So there's a couple of key principles, and this is connects, provides, creates. It's really about exploring your passions, right? Maybe you've always been interested in something. Maybe it's related to a social topic, reducing plastic. Maybe it's you've always been intrigued of how markets work and you want to build a market bot. Or maybe you're interested in whatever you might be interested in. You think about your passions and what you want to do and explore, and then what you do is try to create a cool project around that. And what happens as you start to work on this project is when you share it with other students, sometimes they want to jump in and work and collaborate together. And so, for example, there was a lot of projects last year where somebody would start off and, hey, I'm going to build a UI that is taking some data in and then going to find all of the similar research papers, I think was one of them, in which they used a graphical user interface. They used machine learning models to do natural language processing, and then they used some graph database stuff. And so it's really about taking whatever you're interested in, exploring that. But then you have the mentor network. So you have myself. I know all of those brilliant folks when I worked in the United Health Group department where we had all those emerging technologies. I made a lot of great contacts with people that have like 800, 900 patents, a lot of different connections with different institutions and different organizations. So if there isn't somebody within the mentor network to help facilitate to go through with your project, what we can do is tap into this network as well and get them to help facilitate. But then at the end, we also want to capture the value that you're doing this stuff. So I think through school, it's a really great environment to learn and to have a structure and be taught things. The one part that I don't think they focus on at school as much is capturing the value of things that you're producing. And so if you think about your learning, you're always learning some really cool topics. Instead of just taking a test, it's better to, okay, let's say I take that topic and I condense that topic and I maybe write a blog on that topic that illustrates, what are the, the challenging parts of this concept that I learned. Because this was the hardest part for me to understand for that concept. Now, there's probably other people out there in the world that might also agree with that. And so what you're doing is you're condensing your knowledge and you're capturing it and you're putting it into a blog, some kind of asset. So a lot of this time you want to simplify what you're doing and blog about it, because what this ends up being is your basically your war chest of intellectual property, of your assets that you're accumulating. So when you go, for an investment, let's say you want to actually go and do a startup, or maybe you want to get your first internship. Akash isn't here, but what he was able to do as an intern was leveraged everything he did in Futurist Academy, all these different blogs, these different projects, because he documented his whole journey. And he was able to get 30, 40,000 more on his internship. So they gave him an offer. He said, hey, you need me, pay me this much more. So you're actually creating leverage for yourself. You're creating, this is your project work. This is your blogs. You're creating that assets that you can leverage in the future for whatever you choose to do. So it's all about learning, exploring your passions, creating things as simple as, if I always say, well, if your grandma doesn't know it, then maybe you should document it, right? So it's like, even though you might think it's the most simplest thing in the world, if your grandmother, your grandfather doesn't know how to do it, just throw it into a short little blog. Could be one paragraph. The blog could be one paragraph, and get it out there. And you're just capturing that knowledge, and that you can get to the point where these big companies, when you go for your internship, it's less about resumes and it's more about your proof of what you've done. So you want to get to the point where you can say, if you want to learn about me, just Google me, and then, all these things will pop up. And so it's all about learning, creating, and sharing your work. And this is trying to develop yourself as a, it's basically trying to build a bunch of credibility around yourselves. And having that credibility and getting in front of the right opportunities, you can really engineer yourself into wherever you want to go. And we could talk about that in future sessions and stuff like that. So it's really about the core of it is really engineering your future, and trying to figure out, okay, based off my passion, where I want to go, how do I get there? And we try to make that happen for you. So.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good overview, and I feel it can be really helpful in order to apply it. So now we'll just give you a bit of just some onboarding projects and past projects that previous Futures Academy members have done. So to start off, we have app development, which is with Flutter. Flutter is it's a development environment that has been made by Google. And one of the interesting things is that it uses this language called Dart. And although you may have not heard of the Dart coding language, it actually is pretty similar syntax to Java. So pretty simple, basic, and especially if you've already taken one of the high school computer science classes, it wouldn't be that hard to learn. Another benefit with using Flutter is that you're able to develop apps that are both have those native widgets like widgets that are only specific onto like Apple, like a certain like circle, and how does it appear on an iOS device and how does it appear on an Android device. So instead of having to make two different sets of code projects, one that you would deploy to iOS on the App Store or one that would go on Android onto the Play Store, you just have one project, and onto that one project you can push to both Android and iOS. So you don't have to spend twice the time just doing the same thing just for the same product. In terms of app creation, you use an emulator. So like on the right, this would be like an example of an iPhone X emulator that you would have your app running on, or you can connect your phone or another physical device to test the app so that it appears on a physical device that you have. One of the benefits is that the code is organized in a way of widgets so that if you look on the right, there's this blue bar right here, and that's like the app bar. So you arrange the code in a way where you have the app bar and then you have this body section. So within the app bar, there's certain parameters that you list. And one of the good things is that most of this is automatic. If you just like write app bar, it just auto completes it and it'll give you the list of parameters. And all you have to do is just specify the parameters that you want, and the rest of them will just be defaulted. And that same thing applies throughout like the entire thing. Like here, there's like a body section, and then there's all these different like lists. And the app on the right, all it does is that it's an infinitely scrolling list. So every time you scroll down further, all these random names get popped up with a random name generator that you can develop. And lastly, one of the nice things is that instead of having to completely reload the app every single time, which could take either like 1 or 2 minutes just if you had a small change, Flutter has this way of hot reload so that if you just click on the button, it'll instantly just display it on the emulator or your physical device. So if you want to learn more, you can just go to flutter.dev, and Google has a really nice way of where you can look at their website and then installing it and all of that good stuff. Now we'll move on to Python games.
All right, so if you're interested in learning Python and maybe you want to make some video games, you can use Pygames. So there are two projects that we can make here in Futurist Academy, just starting out. So there's Atari Breakout, which we would spend most of the time doing, and Pac-Man. So Atari Breakout, it's a more simpler game as I just said, and it integrates like most of the important concepts that you want in a video game. So for example, there is a button. So if you look pretty closely at the Atari Breakout screen, there's a home button that it's gray. If you can press it, it'll actually lead you to the home screen. There are also sprites and visuals. So a sprite, what that is, it's just an image in your game. So whether it be a background image, in this case, the Atari Breakout doesn't have one, but you could put a sprite image in there for the background, or it could be for one of the game characters. So for example, there's a white rectangle at the bottom of the screen. That is what the player is going to control. There's also a blue ball that bounces around the screen. And then there are also all these red blocks at the top of the screen that the ball is supposed to bounce and then eliminate those blocks. So those are also sprites because they use images to display themselves. All right, so then there's user interaction. So how are you going to get these game objects to interact? Well, how do you control these game objects? And that is where user interaction comes into play. So for example, in this case, the one controllable object over here, two of them in fact. One is the white rectangle. So this rectangle is what the user uses to control the ball, like how it bounces around the screen. And this rectangle can move left and right using left and right arrow keys. So that is one form of user interaction. User interaction can also happen with other forms of interaction. So not only the keyboard, but also the trackpad and the mouse. So for example, the button, you have to press the button using your mouse. Right, so then Pac-Man. So Pac-Man integrates most of the concepts here in Atari Breakout, back to like all these basic concepts such as buttons, sprites, user interaction, and maybe some collision detection between sprites, how sprites interact with each other. But Pac-Man integrates like lots more files. It's a more complex project with so many more files. So we need to find a way to organize these files. And this is where the organization comes into play. This particularly happens to sprite animations. So what happens when Pac-Man, in this case, open and closes its mouth? You have to go through several images in the process of Pac-Man opening his mouth and then closing his mouth. And the computer has to go through all those images quickly in order to make that movement. So since that requires several images, you're going to have to organize it. So that is pretty much the same thing as a target breakout project, but a couple of more advanced additions.
So next we'll move on to Raghava with his robotics art project.
So these are a couple of projects that are currently that I'm currently working on, and I'm trying to also make them open source as well. So the robot arm project, started that around March, and kind of moved that in within like Futurist Academy, and there's some other members at Purdue that are also contributing to it. But the main goal is really just to just go deep into like robot manipulation, which is a huge like field and area in like robotics. Basically, how do you have robots interact with the environment? And there's lots of different methods. As you can see, like in the demo, this is like a very basic, like crude prototype, having it pick up like very like light objects. But as you can see, like with that, there's still a lot of issues with it. One, like the gripper is kind of gross and it's like it's pretty weak. So kind of doing like just also working on different, there's also like deep learning and reinforcement learning methods, which if you don't know what that is, I actually don't know either. I have to still research it and go into it. So this is something that I want to like make sure you guys know is a lot of this stuff. If you don't know it when you're starting out, that's totally fine, because as you learn, as you do it, as you basically build it, like hands-on, so where you learn a lot more about how it's used and everything. So basically the whole goal of using that is basically to pick up objects like in a better fashion. Like for example, like when you pick up like your phone or something, like there's like a really low chance, well, like it's like hard for like a robot to do it like right in the first try if it's not like programmed to like do it. Obviously depending on the robot arm or robot like gripper. But basically like there are like ways where like you can learn to pick up different objects by like picking a lot of different objects, and you like learn how to do it kind of like how a baby does, or like how you learn how to pick up an object. So yeah, making it smart, and also making sure like when you control it, it's like intuitive. So doing some more research on how to control it, like whether it's using like VR or like voice control, or maybe like in the future like Neuralink. Lots of different ways, but basically making sure it's intuitive to use it, and also wanting to keep this very, like, at least in terms of the hardware, cheap enough for people like just like anybody to just to create themselves, because this is mainly for like an educational piece, educational kind of like project, just to um, have people like learn by building their own. And then I also have a like a navigation robot, like a maze robot. That's to kind of learn kind of the like fundamentals of SLAM and sensor fusion, which kind of like uh, basically code words for kind of how, like, let's say a self-driving car like knows where it is and how it can like navigate around, and how its like data is accurate and stuff like that. So kind of I just finished building the hardware, yet to get into all the theory of SLAM and sensor fusion to get a good grip of it. But yeah, currently working on it. So any of you guys that are interested in this sort of thing, like that like robotics, feel free to, like, when you guys join the main FA server, there's a project in there called Robot Arm. I didn't make one for the maze robot yet, but I will. And if you can like just shoot a DM or and on there and let you know. But yeah, the biggest thing of this is to use industry standard frameworks, build a really good framework and understanding of robotics concepts through like a lot of research and like understanding things on a deeper level. Turn it into open source, to create projects, and then yeah, making sure to keep the price low to democratize who can build it and like learn it.
It sounds good. Now we'll have this real-time GSQL editor.
Yeah, so this is a project that me, Akash, and John and Charles worked John actually helped us for the TigerGraph hackathon that happened over the summer. And GSQL is the programming language for TigerGraph database. And so we just built the real-time editor, so you can log on to the website and then put in your graph credentials and code together with your friends or the people that you're working together. So you can, it's like real-time coding, just like Google Docs, but for GSQL.
Nice. So now we'll just go a bit over how to build a bot in Discord. So as you might have noticed, we have our group chat for this club on Discord. And one of the things that are beneficial like Discord is that it's similar to Slack, but also you can add these bots and it can automate a lot of processes that you wouldn't necessarily want a specific person just spending their time doing. So one of the things with setting up a bot is that you create a Discord API application. And by creating the API application, you can use the same login that you have for your normal Discord. And what you do is that inside the API application, there's multiple tokens, which are just like the client secrets or just like the keys so that you can access it. And it also has like permissions. So with your bot or API as a whole, what were the things that you would need access to in a server that you'd want your bot to do? Then secondly, you can, underneath the API, you can add numerous bot accounts. So for example, you may have noticed that we have the Futurist Academy bot in the Discord. And what we did is that we had added a bot account underneath the API. And then within that, there's specific scopes, like any bot specific permissions you need, like managing messages or like having a voice channel for that if it could just like play music or something. So anything you'd want in the bot that you need access to, then you have that in the permissions. And then all you have to do is just send the bot invite to the server, and anyone who has an administrator permission in that server can authorize the bot, and it would show up just like all the requested permissions that your bot has. And then all the administrator has to do is just approve that, and then your bot will be in the server. Now I'll hand it over to Samin, who will talk a bit more into the bot coding aspect.
All right, so as for the bot code, the bot requires this thing called an authorization key. So you can think of the authorization key as a password, right? So when you log into an account, you don't want to get your
Yeah, so this was just a bit about what Samin had with the bot code for building a robot in Discord. And since there was just a bit of technical difficulties, we decided to re-record this portion. So I'll hand it off to you, Samin.
All right. So the bot in order to run it requires an authorization key. You can think of the authorization key as a password. So when you're logging into an account, you don't want to send the password to the public because it's secret credential informational data, right? It's your own stuff. Same thing with the bot. You can think of the authorization key as its password. So since it's like a really special key, we keep it in this separate file called dtoken.py. In case you're wondering what this .py extension is doing here, these are Python files, so they're written in Python. So we put this authorization key in a separate file and we assign it to a variable. Good. So then the next step is to program the bot. We program it in a separate file, bot.py. This has all of the code. And these and the code here is used based on asynchronous events. So maybe you're familiar with some Discord bots like MEE6 bot. So to call some commands, you would use exclamation mark and then whatever command you wanted to run. Like for example, exclamation mark help. And when you run that command, the bot starts doing stuff. So that's an example of an asynchronous event, which means events that can happen at any moment. So in the case of MEE6 bot, it doesn't know the next time some user is actually going to use the bot, right? It can happen at any moment. That's why it's always trying to detect user interactions with the bot. And that's why we need what are called asynchronous events. Right. So now, so far in our FA server, we do use some asynchronous events. Like for example, if you want to do -hi, So in this case, we change the prefix from exclamation mark to just a simple dash. And if you do some simple commands like dash hi, dash hello, it will return some messages. So that's just a basic bot command. However, Discord bots can be more complex and they can automate more tasks. To explore some of the tasks that bots can do, you can get into this Discord API for Python, click the link over here, and it will show you an API with more features related to Discord bots and automating more tasks.
Database and how to create a schema. Afterwards, you'll learn how to write queries in GSQL, like what Rohan talked about previously. And lastly, you'll learn how to build some applications on top of that database, such as displaying your data with linear regression.
Right. Thank you, Shreya.
Yeah, so I was just going to chime in quickly. So some of these concepts might go over your head. You're like, well, what's this or what's that? What's asynchronous? Especially if you're getting started. So it's really about like, what do I want to do? I want to build like, oh, you know, it'd be so cool is if I build a hamburger flipper that could sell to all the restaurants or something like that. Well, then, okay, what would need to happen in order for me to learn that? So maybe I want to, you know, engage with maybe doing that robotic arm and doing some other things like that. Or maybe you want to build the next generation social media platform. And how do you do that? So it really comes up with like what is your interest and your passion and thought, and put that down on paper, and don't even, you know, don't get discouraged by like the technical aspect of it, because that's what everyone else here is for, is we're all coming together to help one another out on the technical aspect. And so if I want to build my own social network, or in my next, you know, build Google or whatever I want to do, maybe graph databases would be a great opportunity, because that's how they're interconnecting all the data in the back end. And so that's where you could, you know, jump onto this project to get a little bit familiar with those technologies. And so think of these projects as sort of like entry points into how to make the realization of what you want to do possible. And you know, don't you know, we're talking about some of these technology terms. Don't get discouraged. Be like, oh, that's going to be too hard, because it's not just you doing something alone. It's all of us together helping one another out to be successful. And you know, just try to think of those kind of things first. And that's how your passion relates to these projects, is that these are some of the core technologies that are either robotics or AI, or in this case, graph, that will help enable you to build what you want to build. And so just wanted to throw that out there.
Sure.
Thank you, John, for sharing some of your advice. All right, so past projects. So it looks like Raghav, do you want to mention some of this?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. So here are a couple projects. There's a lot more that I wasn't able to slide on there last minute, but Tajay Shibru was a past FA lead and built a tumor scanning app with Streamlit. Basically, it predicts based on I believe a MRI from a MRI of the brain if that has a tumor or not. I think the video is kind of short. I think it might be like 4 minutes if anyone could play it. Do you think you can click on that and
Sure.
see if you can play it? 3 minutes, yeah, that should be good. Is the audio?
Yeah, you probably have to do share screen with audio, so that might be something.
Oh, is the audio not working?
Yeah, it's like there's like a share screen with audio permission that you have to enable when you share your screen.
Oh,
Yeah.
whoops. Okay.
Zoom technical difficulties.
Oh, okay, I see that.
It used to be that you had to be fluent in Excel and things like that, but now you have to be proficient in Zoom. It's one of the core skills.
Well, is the audio working better now?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
All right, glad to hear that.
Hey everyone, my name is Tajesh, and I'm an incoming freshman student at the University of Minnesota in Twin Cities. And my demo today will be about scanner that displays whether or not a given user MRI scan has a tumor or not. So essentially what I did, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
So essentially what I did was that I used aspects of the LANet architecture to build, train, and test my convolutional neural network. And so there are four main operations occurring in the back end of this network.
I tried
The
doing
first
full
main
screen.
operation is convolution. And the primary purpose of convolution is to extract features from the input image, which is represented by a matrix of pixel values. It preserves the spatial relationship between pixels by learning image features using small squares of input data. And in doing so, it captures the local dependencies of the input image and it generates different feature maps from the same original image. And then the neural network learns the values of these filters during the training process. And the second main operation is nonlinearity. And to do this, I used the ReLU activation key to introduce nonlinearity, which takes our real valued input and thresholds it at 0, replacing negative values with 0. So it works perfectly with this use case, as we want our accuracy to be between 0 and 100%. And then the third main operation occurring in the back end is the pooling, which reduces the dimensionality while retaining the most important information within the images. And so I wanted to define a spatial neighborhood. So I used max pooling in 2 dimensions and normalized the dimensionality of my data set to ensure increased accuracy. And in doing so, I was able to progressively reduce the spatial size of the input representation and make the input representations more manageable. And this also helped me avoid overfitting and ensure that the neural network was invariant to distortions. And then the fourth and final backend operation that's occurring is classification, or a fully connected layer. And so to achieve this, I applied a traditional multi-layer perceptron that uses a softmax activation function in the output layer to connect all the neurons in the network. And the output from these neurons and layers represent like high-level features of the input image. And it uses these features for classifying the input image into various classes based on the training data set. And so a demo of a working model is, I used Streamlit to visualize this. So I basically created a file uploader on Streamlit, and one can browse their files, and let's just pick a random example. And then so this one clearly has a tumor. And then so once you upload the image, it classifies it and it tells you whether or not your scan contains a tumor. And the same thing goes for, say, anything that doesn't have a tumor. So we could pick a random one. And this one, yeah, as you can see, it says there is no visible tumor in your MRI scan.
Yeah, so this is actually a pretty cool project. It does use a bit more advanced stuff with like convolutional neural networks and machine learning, but you can think about this as this could be even like a goal that you could look forward to. So if you're interested in machine learning, this could be something that you may even be able to create later in the year once you have like acquired those skills.
Something to like add on is that I think he did it in like a couple weeks, John, or something like that. Like learning it and creating it is something that's crazy like that. It's like,
yeah, he's not he wasn't a computer science background, and so he just came into it and wanted to really do this because he is on the medical side. Like he wants, I don't know if he is trying to be a doctor, but he also wanted to bridge into that technology. And so he thought this would be a really interesting project. What if I could build a project that could scan an image and tell me if there's a tumor or not? And so he built it within a couple weeks, and that then was presented to, I think there was a person from Intel, Facebook, and some other big companies. I can't remember all of them. Optum, UHG, trying to get their projects out there. So what we try to do is have like a demo day, which this was, and we try to bring in some targeted companies that you might want to work for that might have something to do with the things that you're building. And so it's a great opportunity to like showcase and make a connection with somebody from that company, or get exposure out there. So that's what this demo day was.
Yeah, exactly. And like we might have like more of those now, like with more projects coming in, working on it, have more of those. So once projects come in and like have like something to share and something demoable, have some more of these demo days. So yeah, was like kind of targeted for like a group of people that kind of knew what knew what everything was, knew what everything meant. So if it was like spells from Harry Potter, it's all good. You'll learn. And then pathfinding visualizer. So Ramki Pachala, another past FA lead and also a past intern at TigerGraph, built like a little visualizer of different pathfinding algorithms. So he's unfortunately not here today, but maybe at future meetings, if you're interested in algorithms and stuff like that, he can definitely run like a workshop or something on it. So yeah. And yeah, there's a lot more project within the like the actual like official Discord that you can check out.
Yeah, thank you, Raghav, for all the information about some past projects that have been going on. Right. So again, what have you always wanted to create? You can also have additional project ideas over here. So we're not just limited to all these project ideas that we had. So for example, if you looked at TigerGraphs, Discord bots, real-time GSQL editors, robotics, Pygame, and then all these Flutter apps. So we have, if you have more ideas, we definitely encourage you to bring more ideas to our club. We want some more projects. So again, this goes on to what, oh yeah, does anyone have anything to add?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that we have like a majority of these projects are mainly just to like just pique your interest if you don't have an idea right now, and especially if you're even interested in having like a leadership role, or if you always want to like have some experience in leading a project with a group of people. That's also definitely a way that you can just have your own project idea and you can lead a team.
Yeah, and remember what John said. You have to be passionate about the project you're trying to work on, right? Don't think of this as just an assignment to fill. Be passionate about it and actually want to do it. All right. So now meeting times. So like today, our full club meetings are usually going to happen on Fridays, 12:30 to 1:30. But we want to understand your availability. So we would appreciate it if you could scan this QR code over here so you can tell us about your availability. So we'll take a moment to allow you to scan the QR code.
I can also paste in like the link to the presentation so people can like find that and do it like on their own time.
Like,
I think people can access that. So I think you can like just move on and people can like scan it like on their own time too.
all right. And this presentation will also be shared with FA members. All right, so then how do you get involved? So what you want to do, first of all, to get involved is to fill out this registration form. So there is another QR code to scan. And this will ask a bunch of questions about what you're interested in, maybe what projects you want to do, your availability, and so on. And also stay connected. So we have an FA Discord, so a Discord server. So if you're willing to, you can scan the QR code again. And you can also follow us on Instagram. So I'll take a moment for everyone to scan the QR code.
Yeah, so right now the status is that we do have 2 Discord servers. The one that you're in right now is for our specific Eden Prairie Futurist Academy server. So that would just be like all the local stuff that we would be covering in our meetings. And then the main FA Discord would expand to more of like an organization. So FA as an organization. And then you can find like some of the projects that you heard of with Raghava with his robotics arm and some of the other projects that were mentioned. So that's also there so that you can join. And as Samin said, we also have an Instagram account, so you can drop us a follow there as well to get some updates.
Another thing I did want to mention really quick, I think it's okay time to do it. We're so having like a ton of different servers, you know, if other clubs come up and stuff like that might be a little bit confusing, and you know, make information and like finding different projects like hard to come across. So we are like beta testing a platform called OrgX, which is basically allows you to join different platforms and or join different communities within Futures Academy, or join different clubs and different communities within Futures Academy. So if there's like another club for another school, or just like a general club or Eden Prairie Club, you can see the different projects and events going on in each. And that's what we initially like wanted it to be. And doing some beta test, we'll probably be doing some beta testing in the future if you're interested in that. So just wanted to point that out.
All right, thank you, Rocco. All right, so now this is our last slide right here, Q&A wrap up. So here's maybe some questions you had in mind. So what will the next meeting cover? So first informational meeting just covered over what is FA, basically what the club's description is, what are our goals. In the next meeting, we'll look over some of the projects that we listed in this presentation, and we'll kind of understand who wants to join what project. And we'll also make a couple of breakout rooms so that we can just introduce the project to people who are interested. So Adi, do you want to add on?
Sure. Yeah, I think what you said is pretty right, that we would, in the next meeting, we would talk more about how, like, since like from this meeting onwards, you should start thinking about like what were like one or two projects that you would be really interested in doing. So if you have that in the back of your mind, we also post some other additional resources in the Futures Academy Discord server, and they'll have just some additional resources if you want to learn more about the projects that we just talked over here. Next question that you may have is, as this was pretty much covered, if you have an interesting idea, how can you share it with other Futures Academy members? So definitely we would really appreciate if you have any ideas if you wanted to have, and you can just like drop that in DM one of the leads here, and you can also even just like type a message in the general section of the Discord, and then from there we can like have more conversations, and you can like develop like a team if you wanted to.
All right, then maybe another question is, are FA projects limited to the current options presented? And again, no, they're just not limited. We can come up with more ideas. So if you have an interesting idea, again, that was in the previous bullet point, yeah, give us more ideas. We'd appreciate it. And also, we might come up with, the leads themselves might come up with more ideas. And who knows what project ideas might come up in the future. Right, so we're always open to more projects.
Yeah, one of the things we would recommend that if you don't have any coding experience, you can definitely look, because one of the reasons why we have these projects for like Flutter, Discord bot, Python games, graph databases is these are like some gateway to how to like get more into coding and programming. So these are some of the available projects that you can do, and even if you have your own idea, as it's been mentioned, you can as well work on that. So these are just some of the options that we have right now, and you can feel free to add on to that. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Does anyone here have any questions? Like these can just be anything about the club and any of the administration or anything like that. Okay. Well, if you come up with a question later, you can just like DM, write a message in the server, and we'll get back to you. So I think that pretty much wraps up what we have for today. Mr. Moss, do you have anything else to add? Or...
Oh, nice job. This was a great meeting. You guys did really, really well. I'm impressed. It's organized. I wish I had time to, maybe when I retire, I'll be able to pursue my coding career beyond Fortran 77 that I learned way back in the day.
There you go.
Come a long way, but yeah, no, I got a lot of things racking around in my mind that I think would be really kind of fun to learn about. So, yeah, I think my retirement might be spent doing some of this, guys, that you guys have some time to do right now. I've always been fascinated about, I guess, how these things are taking place, right, and how they happen. So the fact that you guys are doing this for fun and engaging in this, I think, is just awesome. So I'm glad we were able to come together and you guys were able to make this happen. And you've got a mentor with such expertise is just awesome. So good job, everybody. Keep it up. It's encouraging to see this going on for the future. So you guys are it. So that's awesome. We'll see you next time.